probably takes so many thousand feet of film and he chops it up as the bits which put together, and I don't know then. What does he do with the director then? If that's the case, what does the director do? Okay. How about you? Do you know what the film editor does?
I've got no idea.
I guess he puts the whole story together, takes it from the book. Maybe takes from what was written in the book and plans it for a movie, helps to plan it for a movie.
Film editor Ernest Walter is one of the most respected men in his field. He has edited over 30 feature films and now is working on Blake Edwards' new picture, The Tamarind Seed. Ernest Walter and his assistant John Grove have 13 miles of rushes as their raw material.
I like to think of this job as rather like building a huge and complex jigsaw puzzle. There are so many pieces to form the completed picture. Yet unlike the conventional jigsaw, these pieces that we have can be fitted in so many different ways. For instance, on this film, so far we're about halfway through, a little more, and I've got something like 50,000 feet of picture to work with. Now, only a small percentage of that is to be used. John, could I look at slate 90, take 1, please? Thank you. This is what uncut rushes look like, separate picture and track, and it would be boring if I allowed this take to run without making some cuts, or usually it would be boring. We normally make cuts into the scene so that we change the angle. And this is my viewing machine where I'm able to put the sound separately from the picture, but at the same time they are interlocked mechanically so that when I start running forward, they travel at precisely the same speed. So we're working with separate elements now, which makes it a lot easier in many ways, because one doesn't necessarily cut the picture where you cut the sound. We work with separate picture and track right through the entire production, and eventually, when the combined prints are made for exhibition, they look rather different from this track. Here is a combined print which has the soundtrack printed on the same piece of film, and it runs alongside the image. This ensures, apart from convenience of just having one piece of film, it does ensure that synchronism of sound with speech, for example, is perfect and cannot be faulted.
Clapperboard. 29, take 2.
That was the noise of the clapperboard, and my assistant has previously synchronized these separate elements by using the clapperboard and the noise it makes.
106, take 1.
106, take 1. There's the bang. 106, take 1. Now the picture, you find the first frame where the board is together, which is here. Place that opposite picture. So we now have the shot together.
Of course, we all get a copy of the script. It doesn't tell me how to cut the picture any more than this machine tells me how to cut the picture, but it does guide me as far as the progression of the story is concerned, and tells me which sequence follows which sequence. I like to mark up my script with the various angles that are provided for each sequence. Each angle has a clapperboard at the front, and we call it a slate. So each piece of film, each individual angle is referred to as slate number so-and-so, whatever the number may be. In this sequence, a scene between Omar Sharif and Julie Andrews, the page of dialogue, I have 6 different slate numbers, therefore 6 different angles, and I mark how far each angle goes. In this case, they go throughout the scene, and I know at a glance that I have 6 choices, 6 different angles, so that I can make the points not only where people are speaking, to see what they're saying and see their faces while they're saying it, but also to see the reaction of the other person, because reactions are as important as what is being currently said. Omar Sharif plays the part of a Russian military attaché. Julie Andrews is an assistant to a man in the Foreign Office. Omar has asked for political asylum, and his own people are out to get him. They don't want him to escape, obviously. And they're coming for him in a fishing boat, and it's the shot of a fishing boat following that dialogue scene that I'm now looking at. And then I will progress through this section of the script and see what happens and whether they do or not get him. That's where the cut will start. And that's the length of the cut. Right, so we've established the approach of the fishing boat with the agents on board. And they're unaware that this is approaching and is very near. We go back to the bungalow and continue the dialogue scene with Omar Sharif and Julianne.
Action in the back! That was Mr. McLeod. Most of the plane was get on. You must reach what the airport is doing.
That cut is all in one piece, so that's just a question of taking off the front and the end of the shot. Well, this simple piece of equipment is a film synchronizer, which has 4 sprocketed drums for 35mm film, so that you can maintain synchronism between 2, 3, or 4 pieces of film. That's the mark that I made in the viewing machine. Picture and sound are being cut level in this instance. Keep all the trims. Nothing is ever thrown away, no matter how small the trim is, it's kept carefully. Now we can make the splice. Little splicing machine uses tape, which has register pins to ensure the true alignment of 2 pieces of film. So we're still in synchronism. It's the end cutting mark, end of the shot. And here's the second cut. That's the mark I made in the moviola. These splices in picture are all made on what is known as the frame line, which is a fine line dividing all the separate picture images. So if at some future time I decided the shot is too short and it needs to be extended, it's quite a simple matter to unpeel the splice and join the trim back on again.
That was Mr. McLeod. The report said the plane will get on time. We must reach what the airport is doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
One of my jobs as an assistant is to file the film, to keep complete track of the film at all times. If only asked me for a piece of film, I know exactly where it's going to be. And on a picture this size, we might have something like 100,000 feet of film. I could find from 1 foot or a trim like that down to, possibly down to a single frame.
Of course, there are certain rules about how one puts film together, although rules are there to be broken many times. But in conventional manner, usually you're provided with what is known as a master shot, and this covers perhaps the entire scene, as long as it's not too long, showing the complete geography of the set and where the people move, how they move, and this is then broken down by the director into the closer shots, the over-shoulder shots, and the individual close shots. So that in general terms, one would start by showing the set and the people where they are in the long shot, and then gradually get in closer and closer to make the points.
One take 3. Omar? Zinka?
Yes?
You here?
Yes, it's the song we danced to in London.
Good omen.
One.
Market. Ready and action!
But in general terms, one gets into the rhythm of the scene. I usually find that the most difficult thing is to start the scene. If there's no obvious way to start a scene, but once you've started, you've committed yourself to a great extent, because you have to follow a pattern and create a rhythm within that scene from the moment you make the very first cut. I've worked with some fine directors, and I always find that those who came from the film cutting room are very content to let you get on with your assemblies without giving you specific instructions. But we usually see each other daily when he's near. We discuss the film, talk about it, make selections of takes possibly. While I'm back in the cutting room the following day, he's still shooting the film.
9 take 3. Omar? Dushinka?
Yes?
Can you hear it?
Omar Sharif has just turned on a record player,
Good omen.
and he calls out to Julie Andrews, "Do you hear it?" Obviously he's referring to the music. Well, we don't hear any music because there wasn't any being played at this time, because we're on a film set. It would be difficult for the engineers to balance music and dialogue just like that. So I will put in temporary film music here so that it doesn't sound ridiculous when he says, "Do you hear it?" and we're not hearing anything. But I can only run it up until the time she speaks her next line of dialogue, because I only have one soundtrack at this stage. So I'll put in a short piece of music to establish that that's what's happening. Then I will have to cut it off when his dialogue starts.
Dushinka?
Yes?
Can you hear it?
Yes, the song we danced to in London.
A good omen.
Of course, eventually, when we get to the completion stage of the film, we will have many different soundtracks. Music tracks, dialogue tracks, effects soundtracks, all to be mixed together electronically to make one master soundtrack for the entire picture, reel by reel. Now, I've been working at the same time with working positive print, which comes from the original picture negative. But when I've finished cutting the work print, this will be handed over to a negative department, and the negative cutters will match the negative to my working print by comparing the numbers which are printed at 1 foot intervals along the edge of each print. So the final print, which goes out to cinemas, I've never touched. It's nothing to do with me. That's provided from the cut negative and the master soundtrack, which makes or produces a combined picture and sound on one piece of film, a combined print for exhibition and release. So these processes take quite a long time, and that's why feature films take quite a long time to finish as well as to shoot. And the result is like the piece of film which you're about to see.
That was Mr. McLeod. He reports that the plane will be here on time. We must leave for the airport at noon.
I'm glad. There's a tea.
Thank you. It's him. But I'm Bangalore.
The doors are open.
Very careless.
Yes?
He won't stay in the bungalow. There's nothing I can do about it. He just won't. Well, he's going out in a few moments to swim.
That's all right, Mrs. Fallon. Don't worry. We'll look after him. I wish you would join me.
And I wish you wouldn't go.
When I'm in Canada, Mr. Loader can treat me like a prisoner, but not before.
Will you wait while I change?
Of course. Shinka,
Yes?
can you hear it?
If you give me your hand. Yes, the song we danced to in London. Then
A good omen.
Blake Edwards, Ernest Walter, the editor of your film, has said that directors who come up from the cutting room themselves tend to leave the general editing to the editor. Now, you didn't come up through the cutting room, so what's your approach?
Well, in a sense, I did come up through the cutting room. Not in the usual sense, but I did spend an awful lot of time in the beginning in the cutting room. So I learned my craft pretty well there. And I do tend to leave an awful lot to my editor. That is not the only reason. It's because I'm lazy also.
But you haven't worked with Ernest Walter before, have you?
No, I have not.
Now, I would have thought that with such an enormous amount of money and talent involved, I would have thought that it was almost essential for a director to establish a rapport with an editor over a period of years.
Well, I prefer that, quite honestly, and I have only worked with a few cutters in my career. But then I came over here, and because it is an English film, I was required to use English personnel. And my film editor, one I've used so much in the States, Ralph Winters, suggested Ernie. And I'm delighted that he did, because they work very much alike. They same type of men, and they do essentially the same kind of a job.
At the beginning of our film, you'll see that it appeared from the people in the street that very few people, well, in fact, nobody really knew what the job of an editor was. Does that surprise you?
Yes, it does. I would think that the audiences were more sophisticated by now. I would think they would be aware of the film editor. He's so important. Yes, it does surprise me.